Hi, welcome to the technical team training. So I'm David Jarrett, the ACM, the Affiliate Challenge Master here for the Technical Challenge here in Colorado.
I'm Megan O'Brien, another one of your Affiliate Challenge Masters for the Technical Challenge.
And I'm Amy Norder, another ACM for the Technical Challenge. Thank you for joining us today.
So we have a number of things we're going to be going over. So first thing we're going to be doing is a very quick cursory overview of the challenge. We're going to do a quick overview, very fast overview of the scoring elements. Then we're actually going to be showing you a performance of a solution. And then we're going to be going in more in depth over all the scoring elements for the solution you just saw and get some feedback and interactions from the people online. And then we're going to, we also have created a workbook here, a team manager workbook of things that you can use during your team meetings. And we're going to go through some of the details and some of the activities. There's 7 different activities here that you can use during your team meetings to teach this challenge.
Yep. And I'll be monitoring the chat throughout this webinar. So if you have any questions at any point while we're going through things, feel free to just type them in the chat panel and we will get to your questions.
Great. So first up is a quick overview. And
yep. Okay,
Amy's
thank you.
Do that.
So this central challenge is based around building an invention that has to solve a real problem. The problem cannot be imaginary. And an invention is a physical device and or software that uses technical methods to solve the problem. So it must actually be able to make that problem go away or reduce the size or impact of the problem. So pretend simulations of solving the problem will not count. And this is all in the challenge overview is what I'm reading from. But one of the stipulations is that your technical methods use principles in technical fields. I'll get to that in just a minute. It must, your invention has to operate live during the presentation, so recording the invention, solving the problem does not count.
So let me give you an example. So like if you had a time machine, so if you said that your problem is that you needed to do time travel, then you can't just do a theatrical thing of saying, well, we just changed time. It actually literally would have to do time travel. So you have to really legitimately solve the problem. Or for instance, like if you said you're going to solve climate change, you'd have to solve climate change. So you got to find a problem that actually can be really solved within the time frame of the presentation.
So maybe not climate change. You have 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Not 8 years. Okay, it also has to be visible from 25 feet away and audible from 25 feet away. So the other piece of this is, of course, the story and 2 of the story elements that have to be included. One is an invention artifact, and that's basically a documentation, i.e. photo, a timeline, something of that nature that shows the progression of the invention and how the team came up with that. There also needs to be a flashback, and the flashback needs to have some substance to it. So if it's too brief, if it lasts, a nanosecond, that might not be enough to be scored. So they need to make sure that that is obvious. The story can be set in any location, any time period, and it can be based on events, either real or imaginary. The impact scenery, which you'll see here in a minute when we do our demonstration, has to come from 3 different fields of technology. And those 3 different fields are chemistry, computer science, electrical engineering, acoustical engineering, mechanical engineering. So at least one of the technical methods has to be used to initiate, operate, and or produce the impact scenery. And I think that'll be a little bit more, you'll see in the demonstration what that means. So we'll go through a couple of these things a little more in depth, the story and things like that when we go through scoring. And of course, ask your questions if you have any, but I will hand it over.
Go for the scoring elements.
Scoring elements.
Yeah, just a quick overview. We're going to look at let's take a look at the scoring page. And so this is a good place to get an overview of what's the different elements. And this is very much just like what Amy was saying, that there's going to be scoring of the invention, and there's the technical design and innovation. And we're going to be talking more about technical design renovation. Then there's going to be the story elements and that are also scored in it, and then there's the impact scenery. And so the impact scenery, just as we said, has to have up to 3. You're scored on 3 different technical methods for your impact scenery, and then there's the 2 team choice elements that are part of the scoring. Before we go through the challenge and actually give a demonstration of the challenge, is there any questions that people have popped up?
Any questions? And so you'll notice on the bottom of that, there's the graph that in this challenge, the impact scenery, the invention, and the story are roughly 1/3 each of the total points. So that is something for the team to keep in mind. And then there's an illustration of how that fits into the overall scoring with Instant Challenge. Do we have any questions yet?
If you have any questions, just type them in the chat box. I hope you can hear everything okay.
Can't hear, let us know.
Yeah, please.
So now we're going to actually give you a brief performance of a solution, and then we're going to go through that, the scoring elements, so you can sort of see how this challenge works out. Okay? Ready? Good.
Yep.
Megan, I can't believe it. There's no one in my restaurant, in our pizzeria. We used to be so popular here. There's no one here. What can we do to actually bring people into our restaurant?
Oh my goodness, Bill, what happened?
I don't know. I remember back when we were filled with tons of people in this room.
I remember that too.
Let's go back.
Wow, look at all these people.
The place is filled with people. We're
There's so many
selling.
people here. I can't find a table. It's packed.
We're packed. We're
Business
selling
is
so
booming.
many pizzas here at the Caesar restaurant.
Wow, that is amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah. You know, I wonder what we could do to actually bring people in.
I know, it sounds like you have a real problem here.
I have a real problem.
Yeah.
You know, so one of the things that I did do is I bought, you know, you've been to those, you've seen those floppy men that you see out
those
there?
guys that go like,
Yeah, exactly.
I love those guys.
I love those.
Yeah.
So I bought one on, you know, but the problem is I because we haven't been getting a lot of business here, I couldn't get the fan that actually inflated it.
those are expensive.
They're very expensive.
Oh my goodness.
And I also have a very bad back.
I know, your
and-
back is
And I
terrible.
can't bend down to actually turn those things on. So I
Yeah.
have this problem. How do I bought this? How do I actually inflate this and make this work?
Oh my goodness. You have a real problem on your hands, Bill. What are you
I
gonna
do. Well, I have this idea here of using some water that would actually drip down into a bottle that would actually turn on. I have a leaf blower I bought from home that would actually turn on and inflate the Floppy Man.
Wow. That sounds like a really great idea.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how it works.
Let me see how this works. What else do you think we can actually use around the restaurant to make this a more interesting place?
Well, I was thinking maybe you could introduce some puzzles
Some puzzles, some
to your
games.
restaurant to
So,
maybe bring in some customers.
So while they're actually eating pizza, they can actually play some games. That's
Yeah.
a great idea.
So I got this for you, and I think it might help bring some business in.
Thank
so
you
you can
very much.
try
I think
that.
that'll be great around
Yeah.
the restaurant.
Yeah.
So let me see if this works now. So I'm going to turn on to see if this actually will work. So I'm going to turn
You
the
don't have to
water
bend
on.
over,
I don't
so
have to
that's-
bend
yeah.
over now. Let me turn this on.
If this works, this is gonna bring in so many new
It's gonna
customers
bring in
for you.
so many new customers.
This is gonna be great.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
It does take a while for this to turn on.
Well, maybe we can do the puzzle while we wait.
So the water is coming through, filling up so the water is coming in from the top down here and going into the water jug here.
Wow, this is a really nice invention, Bill.
Yeah. And then there's the going up to a pulley and then down to the leaf blower down below.
You worked really hard on this.
It's the Inflatomatic 2020.
Oh, wait a minute. 2020. This is gonna solve your problem.
This is gonna solve my problem. It's gonna bring in tons of customers.
Yep.
Into the restaurant.
Is it?
It is.
This is just like a real challenge.
Yes.
Sometimes there's white
This is
space.
the part where there's awkward silence.
Exactly.
Wow, that is gonna bring in so many customers, Bill. I can't believe it. That was great. Okay, but wait, I noticed your windows are super dirty, and I want to clean them for you.
Let's
because-
put the windows.
Yeah,
Yes.
because now you have all these customers. I want your windows to be really clean for people, so they can see in your restaurant, see how great you are. Whoa!
Wow.
Bill,
Voted
you're
best
voted
pizza.
pizza!
Wow.
Oh my
Ah.
goodness!
Great job.
Nice work.
Time.
The end. Great. So we're gonna go through. I can't see where I am. Come in.
You're good.
Oh,
So we're gonna go through the scoring now, and I would love for you guys to
to chime in.
type in your comments about our.
Yeah, somebody asked a question.
Okay.
We're team out choice elements just props, and then they couldn't see what was on the index card, so I said
Okay.
you'd do that.
Okay.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah. We will go through those things in more detail as we get to them in the score sheet. So if you guys have your score sheets and want to pull them up so you can follow along with us as we go through them.
You got your
And-
challenge in your
Email.
email, so you can look at your challenge if you should have the challenge in your email.
Oh, thank you for the round of applause.
Oh,
that was from Kate.
Oh, that was
Okay.
from me.
Thank you, Kate.
Kate, who's in the room with us.
Great. Okay.
Yay,
All right.
nice.
So we're gonna start with talking about the invention. So
So-
our invention was the.
Inflatomatic
Inflatomatic.
2020.
So let's start by talking about the technical design of the invention. So technical design, it relates to how reliable this design is. Does it work every time? Is it effective, reliable? What do you guys think?
Type into the chat what you think about their technical design, the reliability of their.
Of the
Of
water
their-
coming down and then turning on the leaf blower.
As long as there's water, it should be good, said Lisa.
Great. Yep. It worked.
It's
Probably reliable, just slow. Yes,
It's
slow.
very,
Yes.
very slow.
Yeah.
Very slow.
Okay. So
27 from Misha. Misha gave you a 27.
That's great.
it worked well. Maybe started sooner. Okay. Yeah. So it probably would work every time, but there might be some things that we could adjust to make it more efficient.
Yes.
So yeah, so it's pretty reliable. The technical design is pretty good, but there are some things that we could modify to make it even
Yeah,
better.
there's a few leakage issues, and there's a few little things that are sort of teed up that would score change the score, some variations on the scores there.
All right, what about technical innovation? How unique, creative, original the invention is.
So here we have the combination of the water with the pulley and the weight going to the leaf blower.
So rate their technical innovation.
Any answers?
Okay.
It's okay, they're grown-ups, you won't hurt their
I think it was unique and well done, says Tracy.
Excellent.
Tracy. Oh, we should have said like how old we were. We could have been like 6th graders. If that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're decidedly middle-aged, at least one of them
Middle,
is.
yes, middle aged.
Don't call me middle-aged.
I think It was unique and well done. I've never seen one. Okay, yeah. So if you've never seen it before, it's pretty unique.
Yeah.
Original.
So a lot of things like this to consider too is that we could have just reached down and turned on the leaf blower just with our hands directly. So that would have a different level of technical innovation than having all the other stuff going into it. So that's another way to look at these at technical innovation.
Yep. Successful operation of the invention. Yes, it worked. So we would automatically get 20 points for that. Story.
Do you want to talk about that again? It's 0 or 20. It's one or the other.
Yep.
It happened or it
Either or.
didn't.
Yep.
Yeah.
So in this case, it happened, so we would get that would be the full 20 points for that.
Yep.
Any questions so far about scoring for the invention?
Okay, so then we go to the story scoring. Do you want to go over there and read the
Yeah.
chat? Okay, thank you. We're tag teaming here. This is like divide and conquer. Okay, so the creativity of the story about how the problem was solved. So was there novel development of the storyline and the characters? That would be something that the team would be scored on. So if anybody wants to throw a number out there, that would be up to 30 points. Was there clear and effective storytelling? And generally, what the appraisers are looking for in this instance is a beginning, a middle, and an end. And can the audience actually follow? Could you tell somebody later how it started, what the conflict was or the challenge, and then how it was resolved? The integration of the invention artifact. So I'm going to bring this a little closer to the camera so you can see what that is.
So this is a drawing of the Inflatomatic 2000, like an early version of it, is really what this is, the artifact. This is the design of it.
Okay, so again, that can be a prototype, drawing, any documentation like photos of the team developing the invention, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And then the theatrical effect of the flashback. The flashback enhanced the story in a dramatic, interesting, and or memorable way. You remember that was the because that's never been done before. So anyway, so that's what the appraisers are looking at, was that unique, interesting, dramatic, memorable, all those kinds of things. Okay.
Let's give people like a minute if you want to comment on our story or ask questions about the scoring elements for the story.
Anyone? Any questions? Okay.
Okay.
So the
Next.
impact scenery.
Impact scenery.
So this was our impact scenery. It's pretty simple. It's just a piece of poster that says Bill's Pizza Palace. So the impact scenery has to include technical methods. So does anybody know what technical methods I used in the impact scenery?
So this
Anybody
is
can guess.
voted best pizza.
Chemistry.
Chemistry.
Chemistry, yes.
That was from Tiana.
You get a point. You are correct. Yep. So this was I only included one technical element.
How many can
in
you
this.
include? You can include 3. Up to 3 are scored.
Yep. But I only had one. It was chemistry. So technical design of the impact scenery. So that's how reliable it was it effective?
Don't you have to have 3 methods in the impact scenery?
You do not have to.
So that's a great one. That's the number 3 here. So if you look at number C3 for the scoring here, so for each different technical element or technical field, you get 5 points, up to a total of 15 points. So in this case here, we only had 1, but we could actually have 3 different fields to get the full 15 points.
Yep. So we'd only get 5 points for that. Does anyone have any comments about the technical design of our impact scenery? Questions about it?
It was awesome.
Technical innovation, how unique or original or creative it was. It's not that unique. It's a piece of poster board. So I probably wouldn't score this super high in terms of innovation.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have comments about that. And then, yeah, we'd only get 5 points because we only used
Good
one
one.
technical method for that.
The next ones are about the team choice elements. And so we had 2 team choice elements. One of them was the apron here. So I have this great apron that I bought at the store for my team choice element, for my costume here. And then this other one that we had was the puzzle box here. Okay, so the question is that let's take a look at what they would score in terms of creativity and originality and workmanship for these.
Let's start with the split. Let's talk about the apron first. So creativity and originality
So
of the apron.
from a 0 to a 10, what do you give the creativity and the originality of a store-bought apron? 2.
That's
Wow,
nice.
you're
That was
1 or 2,
Yeah.
1 or 2, a 4, a 5.
Oh.
Ooh,
So you're all in the right range. So things that are sort of store-bought would not score very high. If I had made
you could
this-
dress up the apron a bit, says
Right.
Lisa.
Exactly.
Yes,
So that's the thing is that
exactly.
so you can, I could dress this up, do other decorations on it. If I actually had sewed this myself, I would have, it would actually score potentially a lot higher. If it was branded like with Bill's Pizza Palace, so it actually integrated with the story, that would actually be a lot better too. So those are different variations you can do on the story,
Yep.
on the team choice elements.
So yeah, so probably wouldn't score super high in terms of creativity and originality for that, but there are lots of things that you could have done to bump up that score.
Yep.
What about quality, workmanship, or effort that is present?
Did he put any effort into that at all? 0 to 10.
So one thing that the appraisers like to do when to determine the quality or workmanship score is talk to the teams about
Yeah.
their team choice elements. So I would probably, if I was an appraiser, I would talk to Bill and I would say, where did you get the idea for this? How long did it take you to come up with this? What changes did you make to it? Like,
Right.
all those kinds of questions to see if the team spent 5 weeks working on something, that's gonna score higher than just throwing on an apron.
Yep.
That make sense?
Next
So
one.
this one would not score very high for
Yes.
quality or workmanship.
Next one is the puzzle box.
Oh, integration.
Oh, integration
Yeah.
on it.
Integration into the presentation.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How- yeah.
Yeah.
How integrated was this? So is it appropriate for a person working in a pizza place to have an apron? If I were to take this off, would it change the story? If I remove this, would it change it dramatically? So it's semi-integrated in terms of the context and the setting, but if I didn't have this, you would still know that I'm at a pizza place.
Yeah,
So-
it would not impact the story
Right.
at all if he wasn't wearing the apron.
Exactly.
So it would score pretty low in terms of integration.
So how could you integrate it into the story? What would be an idea to integrate the apron?
That's a great idea. That's a
Like,
great.
that's great.
Great
Like, what if it
question.
was like ripped up because you don't have any money because you haven't been getting any
Oh,
business?
that's great. So I could actually have multiple aprons that I sort of switch out that actually show that before
Progression.
the progression and flashbacks and stuff
Yeah.
like this.
And if they were
Yes.
homemade,
And it was made, that would actually be far more integrated. You're absolutely right. That would be a great way to do it.
yes,
I have ideas.
good idea.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so any questions about the scoring of the
So
apron?
someone had asked about team choice elements earlier, and did they have to be props?
Oh, that answer is no. Team choice elements can pretty much be whatever the team wants that isn't already being scored.
So like a good example of that for our presentation, while the Inflatomatic is sort of filling up and waiting, we could have done a song or another presentation of some sort during that time period about our trials and tribulations at the pizza parlor, for instance,
Or a commercial.
or a commercial of some sort.
I
Dance, jingle, gymnastics. We could have done backflips.
Yes, and so those are that would be something like a song. It would be there. You could do a presentation of some sort. There's a whole number of things that you could do for your team choice elements.
Yeah, props are one option, but they do not have to be props.
They can also be technical elements too. So if you actually had a piece of software, another piece of software that's a part of your presentation, literally the software and the code could be used as a team choice element.
Okay, so our second team choice element was this puzzle that I found on the shelf. I originally had a painting that I made and was going to bring, but I left it at home. So it's this puzzle. All right. So creativity and originality of this puzzle. Any comments?
They don't want to hurt your feelings.
They don't want to hurt your
Yeah.
feelings.
You can
Pretty
score it
nice.
as low as you want. I will not be offended.
One or a two,
Yeah,
a
agree.
three,
Yeah.
a two, a two.
Yeah, yeah, I would probably agree with 1 or 2.
So there are a number of things that we could have done to make this actually a very high scoring element on it. So like, for instance, like if this wasn't just something that we just sort of a box that we picked up, if this literally was a puzzle that we created and made ourselves 100%, and actually inside of it was actually a real working puzzle that we created
Of a pizza.
of a
Pizza,
pizza,
yeah.
for instance, that would score incredibly high. That would be people would go, wow, that's amazing that you've actually made a puzzle. Even though that it wasn't, maybe the integration element might be there, but in terms of the creativity and originality and the workmanship, it would score very, very high for that element.
Yep.
We did that.
The
Yeah.
picture would have been a better scoring piece, something you created and a talent of yours,
Yes,
right?
Which is why I was going to bring it. It would have scored
Yes.
higher for creativity and workmanship, but not for integration.
Yes.
But I forgot. So are there any questions about team choice elements and how those are scored? Yes, Lisa, you are correct. Painting would have been a better option.
Yep.
But it
Painting-
would not have been integrated into the presentation, so it wouldn't have scored very high for that.
But you could have
I could have.
integrated it,
Yep.
right,
Yep.
into the story.
We would have
So
found
that-
something with the story. Just to-
Yeah.
If it was a picture of a menu, if it was the menu.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was a picture of a deer.
Oh.
It had nothing to do. It had nothing to do with our presentation.
But it was pretty.
But it was pretty, and I made it myself.
So the last thing I want to point out of the scoring is really at the bottom of the sheets here, is you can sort of see how the central challenge gets broken down between the story, the invention, and the impact scenery. So each one of those components are roughly equal to each other at the bottom. So if you actually look at the bottom with you can see that it's roughly 1/3. The points gets distributed across the invention, story, and impact scenery. Okay.
So are there any questions about the challenge or about the scoring right now? I do not understand the theatrical effect. What does it mean in a flashback and impact scenery? I did not see it in the story.
So the flashback that we did was where we just did that, and then we went back to a time when the restaurant was filled with customers, and that was sort of what we wanted to get back to, is to get back to that time period of when the store was full.
But if you didn't see the flashback happen or didn't understand it, then
It wasn't very good.
It wasn't,
wasn't
very
very
good.
It wasn't memorable.
It wasn't
Yeah.
memorable.
Yeah.
Yep. Very good.
So they could have done something with lights or with sound or with
The
fog,
musical
a musical
instrument.
instrument, lots of ways to make that more impactful.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
impact.
They're not kids. They're
Again, this is just to illustrate the components for the challenge.
Yeah, and then what I did for the impact scenery was, it's gone now, but this was just white, and I sprayed grape juice on it, and then it made voted best pizza up here. So that was the technical method that,
This is
Was it
using the
impact
chemistry
scenery?
for the reveal.
yeah.
It's hard seeing it over the camera.
Yeah,
But
I
you
don't
can
know.
see it you
Yeah.
can see where it says voted best pizza on the sheet.
Yeah, you guys might not have been able to see that on your end.
Yeah.
So I hope that makes sense with what I did for the impact scenery. said fog. Is there a price cap on any of the challenges?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's $200, I think.
$200.
$200 is your limit. There are some elements that are exempt, like instruments and computers. There's a whole list of things.
Rules of the road.
So
in the rules
yeah,
of the
rules
road
of the
are
road.
exempt.
You can also rent something as opposed to, you can do a rental price as well. If it's a reasonable rental price for a day.
Yes.
And all of that spelled out in rules of the road.
Yeah.
So a good example of that would be the leaf blower. So a leaf blower obviously would be rather expensive element in the solution. But I can charge this at a one-day rental, which would be about $25 or so.
You can do that with power tools
Right. And you got to be really careful. It really you have to show documentation that you can rent it for that price. So it can't be that you just said, oh yeah, I can rent it from my neighbor for 50 cents. It has to be, if you're going to be using sort of like some power tools or some other stuff, you really need to do the real retail rental price associated with them.
So really it comes down to what would it take for another team to replicate your solution? Like what would they, if they didn't have a neighbor with a leaf blower?
Exactly.
What would it take someone else to do that?
What if you already own it?
So if you already own it, you still have to account for it on your expense sheet. So, just owning it and having it in your garage is not enough. You have to still sort of account for it on the expense sheet.
You can put it as the one-day rental price on the expense sheet. Will they score more points if they use more fields of technology, aside from the score on number 3 under impact scenery?
So they're only going to score up to a maximum of 3 technologies.
Oh, so
So anything
50%.
beyond that will, so if you do 4 technologies, you will not score more. It's
I
only
think
for
they're
3.
think
talking
she's-
about like the technical design and the technical innovation.
No, I don't think that
Points.
would really,
They
it
use
might
more.
have, it depends upon what's done there. I don't think it's a blanket rule that would score better or worse. It depends upon what
depends
they
on
would
what
add.
What they do. Unless it's something that is provided supplied at school, correct?
That's
Anything
exempt.
that you use, what'd you say?
I think she means that, like, what's the exempt rule? Because a lot of the school things are exempt.
So a lot of things at school that are exempt are things like chairs are exempt, computers are exempt, speakers are exempt, iPhones or phones are exempt, boombox, musical stuff, musical instruments are exempt. I know I'm beating myself there.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that are exempt, and also Arduinos are exempt. Lego Mindstorms are exempt. So there's a lot of things that you can bring in that are to the for the technical elements that are exempt.
Read the rules of the road to get
Yeah.
clarification on your expense report,
Yes.
because it's going to list all those. But you're right, it's a lot of things that you have in schools.
All right, any other questions?
On the challenge.
Challenger scoring?
Yep.
Or about what we did?
Okay.
Great.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is the team manager workbook. And so this was the document that Kate had just sent you. And this is something that's special for Colorado teams. And in this has a set of activities that you can do at your team meetings to teach the challenge. And so when I go into this, the first thing is that as a team manager, you can teach, guide, and mentor. And team members can do, create, and interpret. So you got to be very careful that you just can't say, do this in your main challenge. But you can teach a lot of skills and techniques. And that's what this is trying to get at. It's like some ways you can break down the challenge so you can actually teach it to your teams. So the first one that's actually here is on technical design and innovation, because I think it's very challenging for team managers to talk to their teams about design and innovation. So that's what the first one is. And really what this is, the way this works is really just to have your team go do scavenger hunts for things, technical elements and technical things in around their house. And what you'll find out, and we have some examples of it here, there are dozens of things that are ordinary items that can be repurposed and utilized in different ways for technical purposes here. So good example of this. So I got a couple of things just grabbing, you know, so here's a
Drone.
A drone. I forgot
Thank
the
you,
word.
Kate.
A drone that you can get. So again, it doesn't have to, you don't have to use it as a drone, you can use it as something else. So this is the thing where you have motors here that are controllable and you have controllers on it. And these can be purposed for different things. You can actually use it, teams can utilize these for different purposes. Another one here is actually just simple cars and toys. The great thing about these is that actually trying to teach teams about wheels and attaching wheels and can be very challenging. So just using the things that here, just like repurposing this or redoing this in some way, or if you need something to move, you can actually take things like this and record it, and you can use sound effects with them. Radio controlled cars are another thing that's around. And so again, if you just use this as a radio controlled car, it's not very interesting. But there's a lot of things you can actually repurpose and do this with.
Yeah, like if we had put this up here and maybe somehow made something so that when we turn the car on, it would start
the flow of water.
the flow, like using, yeah, it has a motor, you can use it.
Or
in
even like the
different ways.
wheels, you can have the wheels where you can actually integrate this to scenery
Yeah,
elements,
make
and,
things
and you
move.
can make scenery elements move very easily with this.
Yeah.
Okay. The other one that I like a lot are drill motors. And so what's great about drills is, one is that they're all self-contained, and they're also, the batteries all associated with it. So there's not a lot of wiring of them. But the other great thing about them is that the motors are extremely strong. They have a lot of torque on them. So you can actually move a lot of stuff with a drill motor. So if you need to be able to move team members and very large, like 100-pound or more, drill motors are very simple ways for doing this. And you don't have to, like I've spent a lot of time with teams trying to teach them about motors and wiring motors and getting the batteries for motors and hooking them up so that you can have bearings and stuff like this. It's very complex. Of course, you can do that. If your team wants to do that, more power to them. But using simple things around the house are great. So what the first activity is really is just have your team members go around and search through their house for things that have motors in them and have them bring those to the next team meeting, and then have each team member then demonstrate those items, and then use that as a mechanism for ideation about how it might be, how they could do things with it, or how they can actually, you can create instant challenges that uses those elements. So you can create an instant challenge that uses a drill motor for moving a team member across the floor, for instance. So that's like the first activity. Second activity, some stuff we're about doing, improv activities for story. And this is just sort of standard stuff with improv stuff where you can have, whether it's a past, present, or future for the setting, whether the main characters are people, animals, or plants, or some other things, and then randomly pick these things, and then have your team create a story just within 5 minutes using those elements. And you have them do it 5 or 6 times, and you can sort of see the different stories that evolve from depicting the different elements. So it's trying to do that rapid ideation for story.
Any questions about those two activities so far?
So remember, you can have the kids do these activities, but you can't tell them how to put them into their solution.
Right. So you can't say, hey, this is a drill motor. You could put that drill motor in your impact scenery, and it could be used for doing something or moving something in your scenery. You can't do that. They have to make that connection. So really what you're just doing is trying to give them the elements to teach them about motors that are around their house. You can't make the connection to their main challenge.
So the next activity is on the impact scenery. So for this, it's basically just having the kids come up with ideas to fit with the 5 fields of technology. And one thing that I did, I'll get to that question after. One thing that I did is I literally just did a Google search for chemistry activities for children, computer science activities for children. And there's hundreds of ideas of super basic, simple things that kids can do to fit these 5 fields of technology that they can use.
And the same thing like chemistry, there's a lot of chemistry just around a house. So there's it ranges from things from cooking. Cooking is chemistry, and everyone has the baking soda and vinegar and acid sort of stuff. But there's a whole range of different sort of chemistry stuff around kitchens. And just anything for electricity, any of the stuff that we're talking about here, like with motors, would be also considered to be electrical. And so finding things that just make sound, getting things like smart speakers and so forth that people can use to make sounds or instruments, or also have them bring those in, and then they can sort of see what are the different technical fields for the things they bring in.
So question that we have here, can you guide them by asking how can you use that?
Sure.
Yes. Yeah. So you can ask them how they can use that and how they could be, but that's about as far as you can go.
You can ask them too, like, let's get everything that moves in your house and because other than just moving on wheels, they might have things that wobble or things that shimmy or things that spin. So, there's a lot of ways to move things.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things around the house that make noise, and from alarm clocks and such that are drums, and so you can have them bring those things in. And it's again trying to get them to understand what the space is, but it's up to them to narrow it down for their challenge.
Good question.
Things that move. So one of the things that I like doing is to take one of these technical elements and then create an instant challenge associated with it. So just like I was saying, you can say, I want to use the RC car to create an instant challenge where they have to move back and forth across, and they have to build something that goes back and forth across some span or some sort. And then that gets them to understand how they could utilize the RC car. And you can also create other types of challenges so they can actually think about the RC car in different ways. And the great thing about doing it as an instant challenge is you can talk to them about different solutions that they could have utilized and different ways they could have solved the instant challenge. So you can't have them talk about how they solved their central challenge, but you can talk to them about different ways and give them ideations about how they might be able to apply some of these things to solve the instant challenge.
So these can be some really good preliminary activities, like in your first few meetings,
Exactly.
getting together with the kids, because you can give them that feedback and talk about how can we do this differently next time.
Yep.
So the next activity is on integration, and it basically asks the kids to kind of reflect on the elements that they have in their solution. So kind of what David and I were doing with our team choice elements, we asked if we took this away, how would it impact our solution? If the story and the solution is not impacted at all and it's not integrated. If if the solution completely falls apart because we took away this one element, then it's more integrated. So there's some questions that your team can ask themselves here. So you have to be careful with this. You can't tell them to
It's
take.
not integrated.
Yeah, you can't say no, it's not integrated. You need to come up with something else, or you need to change it, or you need to add something else. They need to come up with that on their own. But you can ask them to fill this out. But how they end up filling it out is up to them.
Workmanship. And so one of the things I like to do with workmanship with teams is a lot of times when they're going through solving their challenge, they'll create little items, little prop items or little, paintings and so forth, and don't throw them away. Keep them around, and then keep track of it as a just to create this scale, a spectrum from 0 to 30, and then have your team determine where they think it falls into workmanship. So when they create something, have them go take a look at that workmanship scale, and then literally put the item there, and just keep it around and keep that scale around, so that they can sort of see things that are sort of put together really quick and might be duct taped together are going to score in one part of the spectrum, and things that took a long time, that might have taken them a month to sort of do a painting or do something, are going to score differently. So it gives them a better understanding about what workmanship is.
Yeah, so you can ask them, like the appraisers like to ask the kids, how long did it take you to make this? How long would it take you to remake it if you lost it?
That's right.
So the longer something takes to make and the more complex and complicated it is, the higher the workmanship.
The last activity is on scoring, and so a lot of teams will come up to me at tournaments and sort of say, what did I score? And they want to know what their scoring is. And I actually think it's really good for the teams to know. They should have a pretty good idea of what they're going to score before they come to tournament. And it's also a great way to sort of guide your teams is to keep the scoring sheet around. And that when they complete, or when they get sort of different milestones for the different elements, is have them score their own elements in it and then total it up. And so this is a great way for them to see what's missing in their challenge and what are the elements that they're missing. And it also of which elements they can actually improve on. And so keep that around. Keep a running list of the scores. From every, you can almost do it like at every team meeting where you can sort of see their progressions about how they're improving on their scoring. And it also helps like they come to you, what can we do next? And then you just go back to the scoring, and then they can find the thing that actually they need to do some more work on. That's all the activity stuff that we had, and that sort of concludes sort of our training and all the elements here. Do we have any other questions?
If you have any questions, please put them in the text or the chat box. They answered all your questions?
Yes. We're all good.
All right, so you guys are going to be awesome at your tournament then.
Yes, I had a question before you all. Oh, wait. Thank you, very informative. Oh, good.
And this will be archived,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, it will be
On
on
the
the website tomorrow.
Okay.
And another thing, just that we're here to help you. So as the Affiliate Challenge Masters, we're here to, if you have any questions about the challenge or how to approach your team meetings and so forth, we're here to answer those questions. So feel free to reach out to us and talk to Megan's been emailing all the team managers with all this information, with like the workbook, but also feel comfortable just sort of sending the emails to us, and they're also, our direct emails are also on the website too.
Yes. And if any of you have not received any emails from me, please put your email in the chat box if you have not gotten any emails from me, Megan O'Brien.
And the other thing is too, if you are currently the only team manager and someone else joins you to help out, this training would probably be a good place to send them to just get an overview and go through the workbook and things like that. So it's going to be available.
Cool.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
very
your
much.
time.
Yes. Have a good challenge.
Thank you. I'll leave it open for a couple more minutes in case people need to put their emails in. Thank you, Tiana. Can you also tell me your team name and what region you're in? Tiana, if you're still there.
You should just email it to Kate because if this is going to be public, you don't have
Yeah.
public
Oh, right.
emails.
Oh, they're not going to see the chats.
Yeah, the
Okay.
chat's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tiana,
Thank you.
I have Tiana's email too.
Okay.
So
Okay. Great.
Cool. I will get you hooked up, Tiana. All the information. Thank you.
That's it.
Yay.
thanks,
Team.
guys.
Thank you.
I'm going to